All right. Hello, everybody. Looks like we're hailing from lots of different states here. Michigan, Ohio, the Midwest seems to be well represented. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I know I'm so sick of people saying these sort of unprecedented times, but I mean, it is. So I've actually had a lot of fun really reaching out to all the teachers, amazing teachers that I know, looking and scouring through Twitter to find all the sort of tips and tricks and hacks to bring them here for you today to try as you kind of enter this whole thing called virtual school, and hoping this can help you really crush it and end the school year really strong. So I'm going to go really fast-paced because I had said we were going to do 15. I actually have 22 tips and tricks to share here, but I want to make sure you know that everything that I got a little echo there. Anyway, everything that I talk about is going to be in this 22 tips and tricks for virtual school. So this link that is, well, you see the web links for remote learning there at the bottom left of your screen. There's a link there that has links and demonstrations of everything I'll talk about. So if you can't take notes really fast, because I tend to talk really fast, you can always head back there. But let's first get a sense for who is here. So we're going to bring up a poll here. If you would just quickly pick your grade level, and then what web sort of virtual meeting platform are you using? I'm really curious about that. And for a little fun in the chat box, if you will, since, you know, grades are sort of really been turned on their head, so I thought let's reinvent GPA and say, GPA, what does it stand for? Wrong answers only. So for example, get tickled alone, that's my example there, but what can you come up with for a new acronym for GPA, just to have a little fun in the chat box while we fill out this poll. Oh, I like Sharon, great party area. There you go. Get people active. I need to get myself active. I feel like I'm locked in this office now, working from home. Great ping pong achiever. I love it. Florida represents. Anything with the word goofy in it I like. Thank you, Linda. Keep putting those in there. They're kind of fun. Let me see who's here. We've got lots of grade levels. Looks like the middle grade levels 4 to 8 maybe represented the most. Google Meet seems to be the most used platform. Good. I've got some extensions in there to share with you that might be helpful. Teams, Zoom also represented there. I'm curious what the others are, if you feel like writing those in there. Oh my gosh, gorillas peeling apples. I read that differently at first. I didn't see the L. Just saying. Groovy is also a good word. Love it, love it. Hopefully that's a little fun kind of game to play. I'm going to quickly move off of that because I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'll talk about that a little bit later as a strategy you can use with your kids as well. So let's get right into some tips and tricks. I've divided this into a couple of parts. Part one being sort of what I call nuts and bolts of virtual school, which you probably figured out a lot of these because you've been thrown into the deep end, let's be honest. But just some little hacks around organization, management, connection, communication, and just sort of staying sane through the process, or trying to as close as you can. But then part two, really thinking about how can I recreate those experiences that I got into teaching for, right? That time when the kids are just building off of each other, constructing knowledge, and you have this aha moment. It's one thing to just get everybody online, but how can I teach in that meaningful and authentic way that I love in this remote environment? So I have a couple of actual projects and activities to share with you, as well as some strategies for building those on your own. So we'll start with the nuts and bolts part. But first, I wanted to acknowledge that this webinar is sponsored by Blue Apple. So these are projects that engage your students in making the world a better place. And these are things, especially if you think about reentering next fall, it's probably not going to look the same as school has in the past. So doing more project-based learning where kids have some opportunity to do some of those passion projects, to make learning their own, maybe in a hybrid environment, might be something of interest to you. So if you are interested in that, also, you can use coupon code webinar20 for 20% off of those, or tell your principal, see if they want to hook you up with some of those. All right, so nuts and bolts. So let's start with organization. The first thing that I want to make sure you know about is just the idea of hyperdocs. So if you've used Google Docs or Google Slides at all, you're probably familiar with this, but using it as a way to avoid sending sort of multiple attachments, or, you know, worrying about the file size being too large to send. So I just kind of want to show you this. I know you can't read it, but this is the example, the document that I mentioned earlier, this 22 tips and tricks for virtual school. This is it's a hyperdoc. So, for example, later on in this webinar, I'm going to be telling you about, let me pick one here, in the section, second section under Management and Connection, about some Google extensions. Right here, I have the links that you can go to see a demonstration of how to download that extension. So, for example, using it in this scenario, it was a way for me to share all of these tips and tricks and all of the demonstrations in one document so that I know I'm sending it to you and I don't have to send you multiple attachments. Also a strategy that can help with your kids. So hyperdocs are great. To look at more of a student-facing one, I'll show you one, and I'll go into this project a little bit more, but you could use it on Google Slides. So maybe it's a student-facing piece like a slideshow, and in this case, the students can kind of like link through each of these documents, each of these slides in the way that you want them to. Again, you're sending them one link and they can get to everything from there. So hyperdocs, definitely your friend. Use those to avoid, keep yourself organized. Secondly, this is just my own little kind of organization hack, but as I've noticed, I've really tried to do more than I ever did at school, I think. I feel like being home opens up all these different possibilities, and so I can get really overwhelmed really fast. So I've started just ending every day with writing, what are the 3 things that I have to accomplish tomorrow, and putting them on a little sticky note. And then I know, it's like a little note to myself. The next morning I wake up and here are the 3 things I have to accomplish. You know, you have all the same stuff of responding to email, of which we'll get to next, but you know, and all the different things that you need to do, maybe the Zoom classes you have scheduled, or but those things that you have to accomplish outside of the regular scheduled stuff, just put those on a sticky note so it doesn't get too big, and leave yourself that note for the next day. The next one is scheduling a time to email or respond to emails. So I don't know if you are like me, but I have noticed well, I've kind of thought this all along, but it's been confirmed, especially our middle school and high school teachers out there. Our kids are full-on nocturnal. I mean, they are waking up at 3 p.m. and emailing you at any hour of the night. And I know as teachers, we want to be so responsive to our kids. And if we do that in this environment, we will be emailing and responding to emails all the time. So I would suggest just setting up a specific time that this is when you respond to emails, and just cut yourself some slack. Respond to those emails on your schedule, not your students. So a couple different tips there on organization. Communication. So this is one that comes from one of our teachers in our group, but he was, thinking about how the kids, one of the things that's powerful and in a way beautiful, if I'm honest, to be able to mute all of your kids. Like, what if we could do that in our real classroom? But at the same time, they want to communicate. They want to share that they're with you. They understand. So using hand gestures is a great way on a kind of a group web meeting to be able to give them the ability to say that they are with you. So one is just the hand gesture saying, so that's the little picture there. Another one that you can teach them is the ABCs. So if you have multiple choice, you can teach them A, B, and C. Each of those are in the Google document, so don't worry about that. If you don't have the, or they're not technology savvy to be able to use the little tools to raise their hand, just putting your hand up to the camera that says, I've got a question. So encouraging them to use hand gestures so that they're not, void of communication and collaboration in the classroom here. This one also came from John. He was really quick to mention that this is a double-edged sword, but don't be so afraid of your chat box. Again, it can be used for evil, right? They can get in there and have all sorts of side conversations. But it is a place that if you want to really just sort of get across some content and they have questions as they go, having them put their questions in the chat box allows them to get that question down, and then you at your own time to be able to say, all right, I'm going to address these questions that are over here. So again, it might come back to haunt you in a few ways, but I think it's worth giving a try to sort of table some of those questions. And this is interestingly, I've been thinking a lot about what are some of the strategies that we've sort of employed for virtual learning that maybe we might take back with us into a regular classroom. And this is one I think that could be interesting to try. Rather than having your kids pepper questions at us, do they write their questions down at their desk and you have a set time that you answer the chat box or desk questions. So just a thought. Here's another one is the insert camera tool. So in getting your kids to communicate and show their work, I saw someone on Twitter was doing this little tool, and maybe you guys know about this, but this was new to me, that I'll show you kind of an example. Let's say you were giving math practice and you had a bunch of subtraction problems here, and what you really wanted to see is not their answer, but their work. So all you can do is right in the middle of the cell, you can hit insert, and you can hit camera, and so they can show their work. They can take a picture with their phone and then place it right there. So when you get it, you can see the work that they use or showing their work for that particular math problem. It also might work if you had a choice board where you were giving them several things to do and they could take a picture of how they accomplished that particular piece on the choice board. So insert camera tool, again, full demonstration of how to use that tool is in the hyperdoc that is attached. All right, so another one is just providing video feedback. So you want to make sure that, when your kids are giving you stuff, we know how important feedback is. And so using a tool like Screencastify or Flipgrid, if you haven't used those before, I definitely encourage you to check those out for being able to provide really quick feedback to your students, to be able to provide a quick video. Don't get hung up on yourself. They see you all the time. So just record your quick video feedback and send that out to them that way. Is a great way to give them some feedback on their work. Another one to save you some time that can be kind of fun, you can sort of play with a little bit too, is using what is normally kind of a headache, the sort of autocorrect feature in Google, but thinking of it as an automatic substitution feature. So if you are, maybe you're grading some papers and there's just phrases that you know that you're going to have to give a lot, like please provide more evidence or please provide more detail. Rather than typing that out every time, you can set it up with an automatic substitution where you just write PME and it'll automatically write, please provide more evidence. So just a quick little keystroke way to, get some of that feedback that you're going to have to do multiple times. Again, instructions for how to do that are in there. Thanks for the comment there about Flipgrid is awesome. Absolutely, it's a great way to engage your kids, so keep that going. All right, I've thrown a lot at you already, so I just want to give you a chance, like we do our kids, to reflect and think about which of these you might want to actually try. So take a minute to answer this poll. Which of these things resonate for you as things that you want to try? If you want to, you can jot them down for yourself to remember later as well. I just kind of want to see what's resonating here. And if you have other tools to use, feel free to put those in the chat box as well, particularly thinking about organization and communication in this section. Looks like the camera tool is a big hit for this one, and hyperdocs. And I wanted to show you how to create the actual hyperdoc, but I know I don't have time. So if you are at all uncertain on how to do that, my email will be, it's there at the beginning, it's also at the end, and feel free to hit me up afterwards and I will show you exactly how to create those. Save you a ton of time. Automatic substitution, I can't wait to see what you guys do with that. I'm curious to see what sort of phrases you want to automatically substitute. All right, let's keep going. Okay, next we're looking at management and connection, some tips and tricks for that particular section. So I mentioned we were going to talk about some Google Meet extensions. Google Meet is fantastic. One of the biggest complaints I've heard, and some people have found this little hack, but is that it doesn't give you a grid view automatically where you can see all of your students at once, but you can do it. So just in general, check out the Google Meet extensions on the Chrome store. Tons of extensions. Anything you think, like, I wish I could do that, it's probably in there. But I'm going to show you 3 of them. This is a little bit of a threefer. So one is Google Meet Grid View. So again, in there is a link to, and I try to find the demonstrations that were short, like a minute or 2 minutes, to show you how to find those and use those. But you can put in a little extension and be able to see Grid View. My next favorite one for Google Meet is Nod, and it's a way, that's the second little icon here with the thumbs up. Again, a way for your kids to be able to communicate, share with you some feedback on are they with you or not. So it gives a few different emoticons that they can use. So you can say, all right, I got a question, or I got a thumbs down, I got a hi. So you can kind of see how that's going. Another one that seems obvious, but once people started all of this, they realized it's kind of difficult to take attendance. So Meet Attendance is an extension in there that you can put in there, and it will take it right into a spreadsheet for you. Makes it really easy. So if those are things that you have struggled with in Google Meet, I definitely recommend those extensions, and just checking out extensions in general. Love it. By the way, happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Thanks, Diana. What a great reminder. Back at you. Sorry, I kind of get distracted, but that was a great reminder. All right, next one is what I call Interact in 10. So this is just the general idea, and we do this in practice in the classroom as well, in a physical classroom, but we just, especially in a remote environment, have to keep our kids interacting at least every 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, do something like a poll or survey or chat. You'll see I'm doing that with this. Every 2 slides, I'm going to have the little poll come up. Just a way to keep them with you, because otherwise it's so easy to lose them. Another one to try out is called Flippity. This is a great way to just keep things connected, keep your kids connected, and increase engagement a little bit. you can turn any Google spreadsheet into sort of an interactive activity with this. And there's different kinds of them. There's bingo games. There's, video, like trivia quiz shows. There's, a randomizing wheel. So any kind of game that you can imagine, it's up there. And it's just a quick way to turn your spreadsheet into that game. And then let's not also forget to just add a little levity, add a little personal connection. That's what teaching really is all about, is making sure the kids know that they are worthy of critical and creative thought. So let's keep connected with them. Everything just as simple as the, which dog are you today quiz, or like I did at the beginning, the wrong answers only acronym challenge. That's a fun one to put out there. Again, just a way to get kids thinking, get their creative juices flowing a little bit, but also to show a little personality. So that's really fun. And if you're stuck, like, I don't know what to think of this week, take that off your shoulders, put it on the students, because they have a gazillion of these sort of student personality quizzes. So just make it their choice. Assign one kid a week. You come up with a personality quiz this week for us to do. Could be a fun way to keep everybody connected. All right, now a few sanity tips. This one comes from one of our own, Jamie. I thought this was a great idea. Many of you are at home doing this with your own family around as well, trying to homeschool your own kids as well as teach your classes. So it's impossible to ignore that fact. So one of the things she did I thought was a great idea was just set aside lunch with the family time. And so they get together and they have a little activity jar, maybe with different activities in the jar, like, make a puzzle or go for a walk. So they'll just kind of sit down for lunch, pick out one of the activities, and do that for their lunch hour. It's just kind of a nice way to keep you grounded and, knowing that you are at home and you're trying to wear these two hats and to try to do that as successfully as you possibly can. Speaking of that, this one came from another one in our group, from Ben. This was the idea of sometimes, I know actually Ben does literally wear different hats for some of the different tasks, but maybe you're so used to being in your classroom, and maybe you do certain work at your desk. Maybe you do other work at one of the, in the cafeteria of your work. Maybe you have different places where you go to, and you can recreate that at home too. If there are places where you maybe sit one place when you do your lesson planning, another place is where you're doing your grading, another place where you're doing your Zoom meeting. Maybe that doesn't work for you, but for some people it might really help kind of just put your brain in that different mindset. It's something to try to keep yourself sane in this strange world. Another one I would recommend, if you aren't on Twitter, I highly recommend it. This is a great way to find like-minded educators and help each other. So there's something called Twitter chats, which are usually scheduled, and they usually have some sort of a theme to them. And sometimes they're 30 minutes, sometimes they're an hour, but they'll put out a question every 5 to 7 minutes, and everyone just sort of responds with answers to that question. So, and they're usually questions that you're dealing with too. You can provide some help to others, but you can also get some great ideas from one another. And in the document that I keep mentioning over and over, because it's a great document, there are a list of different chats that are out there. So if you're not sure where to start, that might be a great place. And again, if you're at all hesitant, hit me up. I'll walk you through Twitter one-on-one. I really love it. Let's also remember our kids' sanity too. It's not just our own. And so choice boards are all the rage right now, sending those out and giving kids some choice at home with their different activities. Include some no-screen options in those choice boards. I think that's a great way to bring a little bit of sanity to the kids and to make sure that they're not on the screen all the time. It's really hard to coordinate with all the other teachers, especially if you're talking about secondary. So sometimes they can just be on the screen the entire day because the teachers have them on there doing different things. So include some no-screen options for them as well if you can. All right, as I mentioned, at least every 10 minutes we're going to stop and do one of these. So we've talked about a few of these now under the idea of communication and sanity. So which of these do you think you might want to try to help with virtual school, in particular with staying sane and communicating? And again, feel free to write any in the chat. Let me see what's happening there too. Yeah, TLAP is a really fun one. Teach Like a Pirate group for the Twitter chat. Where do we get the document? So there is, it's not showing while the poll is going, but as soon as the poll leaves, you'll see a list of web links there, and it's the one called 22 Tips and Tricks. If you don't see it there, you will also get an email right after this, or maybe tomorrow, that also has a link to that document. Oh, someone just answered that for me. All right, so looks like here, Flippity got a lot of nods. We'll give that a try. Everyone's going to try a little bit something. Good for you guys. All right. I'm glad that many of you hadn't are excited to hear about the grid view. I was worried that everyone might know about that one already. Okay, perfect. Let's keep rolling. All right, so now as we look at, again, the nuts and bolts, now moving into how can we make this learning really meaningful and authentic. So I want to share a couple of projects with you in the short amount of time we have left. One is the idea of doing any sort of citizen science. So this comes from some of our own group that is working with our students, and a document that we update every week with different activities. But the idea of anything, citizen science is just the idea of different organizations out there are crowdsourcing data. And so if your kids can be a part of, collecting this data and giving it to organizations, there's just a great built-in real-world connection there. So I've listed 3 there, but the citizen science document in the link has, I think, 6 or 7 of them that your kids might be interested. So something to get the kids doing something that is meaningful and impactful to the world. Another one that you can download for free is called Prevent the Spread, and this is a hyperdoc. I'm going to show you a little bit of it. It's the one I showed you earlier, but essentially it's 5 lessons, and this is a document you can send right out to the students, and they can link through at their own pace or at the pace that you dictate for them. And they go through a series of lessons where they learn how to save a life, where they learn about the unique power to stop the spread of the coronavirus. They learn about the virus itself. Then they learn more about how germs spread and how to stop that spread. And then they learn what they can do about it. They could create a public service announcement. So they look at some public service announcements that are out there and explore them, what makes them successful, and they make their own. And then in lesson 4 there, this takes them through how to share it with another classmate to get feedback, to give feedback in a respectful way, and finally to publish their ideas, their PSA out to the world so they can be part of making a difference. So this is a little bit how that works. So if you were to click on that lesson 3, what do you say in a PSA, you can see how the kid is directed to sort of go through these different links to learn about and explore the PSAs, learn how to create their own, learn how to make it viral, and then reflect on their learning. So that's just a little bit about how that works. So this is just one of those. If they were to click on that Explore PSAs, here are 4 different PSAs that they can check out to learn a little bit more about them. So that's a specific project. I wanted to give you a little sense of it that you can download for free. Again, the link is in the document. Another one is the idea of you could turn whatever you're doing into an advertisement. Have the kids advertise for or against something that they're learning about. So in one of our after-school programs, they were learning about space and planets, and so we had them create a space tourism ad. So here you can see one of the students took the approach of saying, tired of waiting 365 days for your birthday, come to Mercury where your birthday is every 88 days. So again, they're having to, a little bit of it is recall, but they're also having to think about how can I present this in a way that is appealing, which is a great 21st century skill. Next is also just anything that you can do that's purposeful and meaningful. I found this from Action for Happiness, which, full disclosure, it's a little hokey, but I'm not afraid of hokey. I kind of like hokey. So it's just something you can do every day for meaningful May. So for example, what is today? 6. Take a step toward one of your life goals, however small. So just something you could share with your students to have them do something meaningful every day. I think that's a great way to make them feel like what you're doing is purposeful. So those are some specific activities. If you want to make your own, I've got 2 pieces of advice for you. One is just engagement first, especially as you have just a few weeks left or maybe a month left of this school year, thinking about, what is it my kids could really get their head around, really want to do, and just make it the time to do that passion project. And then you could, I guarantee you can probably connect whatever learning you have to teach to that passion project. So think engagement first. I know that's just a really broad strategy, but if you try that, you can usually connect. Rather than thinking, I have to teach X, how do I make it interesting? Think, what can interest them, and then how do I teach it? My last strategy for you is to, if you want some help thinking about that engagement first, we offer 30-minute free consultations, and we're able to do a lot in 30 minutes. If you have an idea for what might engage your students, but not sure how to connect it to what you want to teach, or the other way around, you have to teach these 5 standards, or else, they're just not going to be prepared for next year. How can I do it with a project that would really engage my students? Let us talk to you and help you come up with some ideas, just sort of a phone a friend. One of our coaches, Jamie, did this with someone. She's an EL teacher and came up with ways to engage English language learners in the virtual classroom. So here's a document that she created for her. So feel free to hit us up for that. One last poll here. Which of these do you think you might try? And then we'll wrap it up. So citizen science, prevent the spread, turning things into an advertisement, the Meaningful May, my favorite Hokie challenge. Make your own with building engagement first, and maybe phone a friend. Great tip there. Previous webinars can also be found at vai.org. So also in the video you'll get, all the comments in the chat are there as well. So, all right, excellent. Let's keep on rolling. I know I've thrown so much at you, but I learned so much. So we will have another webinar on May 20th. Dawn, who is really, she's just great at these and finding those really practical tips, is going to be focusing particularly on engagement and how do you engage your students. One, just to get them to show up sometimes for this, but then also to stay engaged while they're there. So engagement is something we're going to focus on. But if you'll take a minute, if you have burning questions, how do I do this? How can I do this in this environment? Or I want to be able to do X. If you'll type those in right now, we'll be sure and incorporate those into our next webinars, or maybe in our email that comes out to you. We'll try to address those. So it'll take about just maybe 10 seconds to do that, if you wouldn't mind. And you can keep adding those in as we finish up as well. How you do your surveys and polls, we can help you with that for sure. All right, love it. The polls are super easy. I'll try to add that to the Google Doc actually. So in the next couple days it might change. That's the beauty of those. All right, I want to make sure I honor your time and get you out on time. So I'm going to move on, but keep putting your questions in the chat box so we can address them. And so I also just want to say, if you like what you heard here, this is what we do, super practical professional development that really hits teachers with what they need. So this is your chance. You know, administrators all around are starting to craft their PD plans. So if you like this, tell your principal about us. And we'd love to create a virtual, if we need to, or in-person plan with these sort of very practically focused sessions that can help you stay up to date with your practice and hopefully keep your passion for teaching alive. So be sure and tell them about that. Thank you again for taking the time to do this. I know time is super precious for teachers, and I really appreciate it, especially on Teacher Appreciation Week. So there's my email. If you have any questions burning, don't hesitate to send them to me there. And we will also send you an email with a video of this webinar, as well as those web link attachments. Okay? Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope to talk to you all very soon.